The following program is brought to you by PodcastOne Sportsnet.
This episode of Steve Austin Show is brought to you free in part by our friends at Geico. Go to geico.com, and in 15 minutes, you could be saving 15% or more on car insurance. That's right. Save hundreds of dollars on car insurance at geico.com. Extra money in your pocket? It may just be the most rewarding thing you do today.
The following program is a PodcastOne.com production.
From Hollywood, California, by way of the Broken Skull Ranch, this is the Steve Austin Show.
Give me a hell yeah.
Hell yeah! Now, here's Steve Austin.
All right, everybody, welcome to Steve Austin Show. I am coming to you from the mean streets of Los Angeles, California today. Sitting here at 316 Gimmick Street, and I got a hellacious podcast for you. A guy comes by my house named Matthew Burns. His wrestling name was Sick Nick Mondo, and we're here to bring some awareness to his docu-film called The Trade. We're going to talk about his career. We're going to talk about the deathmatch wrestling scene, some of the matches he had, some of the things he put himself through, what he was thinking when he was doing these things. It's an absolutely fascinating watch. I highly recommend it. During the course of the podcast, Matthew will drop the information of where to watch The Trade. It has been out on Amazon Prime and now is available on Blu-ray DVD. But watch this docu-film. It's just quite simply amazing to me because I don't have a whole lot of knowledge about the deathmatch wrestling scene. And I've seen some of Mick Foley stuff, some Cactus Jack stuff, and, going back to my days of talking with Joey Janela. But this guy took it to just really the ultimate extreme level. So it's just interesting getting into his head, having a great face-to-face conversation with him, and seeing what was going through his mind, going on in his life while he was doing this type of wrestling. And the film is graphic, it's disturbing in some points, but it's you got to keep watching it. You just got to keep watching it. It's so damn interesting. And that whole scene is the craziness or the mindset. I won't call it crazy. It's just so different, and it's like nothing I ever experienced during my career. But obviously, their career or the death match scene is just a same parallel as the wrestling scene. You're telling stories. You're just telling much more violent stories. And so he's a very intelligent guy. He's a very well-spoken guy, and he's a guy that thinks a lot. And so I didn't know how this conversation would go. I didn't know how we hit it off or what kind of person he would be. And I just really enjoyed talking to him and to get a chance to get inside the mind of a guy who's done all the stuff that he's did. And he was an icon in that deathmatch wrestling scene, and so many people looked up to him. And it's not for everybody, and a lot of people will just flat out admit that. But I'm fascinated by it because I love all forms of wrestling. And there is some rough-ass stuff in here. Some of the footage, some of the bumps, some of those fluorescent light tubes, the cuts, the abuse, the punishment that those guys are absorbing, the barbed wire, the bumps, the heights, everything. So I thought The Trade was riveting, and I highly suggest you find a way to watch it. It was on Amazon Prime. Matthew will drop the information. Please seek it out and watch it. I'm going to keep this open to the podcast short because Matthew and I talk for about an hour and a half, hour and 40 minutes. And please enjoy my conversation with Matthew Burns, also known as Sick Nick Mondo, a hugely influential guy in the deathmatch wrestling scene. Really enjoyed talking to him, and I hope you enjoy the podcast. And while I'm in the open, please stay tuned next Thursday when stand-up comedian, actor, writer, super funny guy, super dude, Ron Funches comes by 316 Gimmick Street, and we chop it up, laugh our ass off, and talk about stand-up comedy, pro wrestling, acting, his podcast, and a bunch of other stuff. I had a great time talking with Ron Funches. He just left the house, so tune in this coming Thursday and check out that podcast with him. Awesome guy. Please enjoy my conversation with Matthew Burns, also known as Sick Nick Mondo. All right, let's give a shout out to my main man, Diamond Dallas Page and DDP Yoga. Man, I'm still kicking ass doing my regular workouts with the DDP Yoga Now app. Long time now, and I'm feeling the change, and obviously it's for the better. I'm more limber, more loose than ever before, and I feel like $1,000,000. DDP Yoga can work for all ages, weights, fitness levels. It is a kick-ass cardio workout that will dramatically increase your flexibility and strengthen your core, all like never before, and with minimal joint impact. Just for listeners of the Steve Austin Show and just in time for the holiday season, DDPY is offering its biggest discount ever with 30% off DDPY workouts and the DDP Yoga Now app. And to boot, you will still get 3 months free on the app with any DVD program purchase or 7 days free on any app subscription. DDPY's huge holiday sale is the perfect chance to get started with the program before the new year. This offer is only available at ddpyoga.com/Austin. Strap in, folks. The college football playoff semifinals are set for Saturday, December 29th, only on ESPN, with 2 back-to-back games, starting with Clemson and Notre Dame at the Goodyear Cotton Bowl Classic at 4 p.m. Eastern. And Clemson has Notre Dame's number from their last meeting back in 2015. Then it's Alabama and Oklahoma at the Capital One Orange Bowl at 8 p.m. Eastern. These two teams are facing off for the first time since the 2014 Sugar Bowl. And don't forget, Oklahoma has beaten Alabama 3 straight times. The winner of the Orange and Cotton Bowl will face off in the national championship game presented by AT&T on Monday, January 7th on ESPN. Do not miss it.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
We're officially rolling down 316 Gimmick Street. I'm talking with Matthew Burns, and also known as Sick Nick Mondo. And we're going to be sitting here talking about your new movie, documentary film. It's been out for a little bit on Amazon Prime.
Yeah.
Now it's out on Blu-ray.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
It is The Trade.
That's right. And man, if this isn't the weirdest combination in wrestling history, Stone Cold Steve Austin and Sick Nick Mondo, man, thank you so much. I'm really excited to chat with you.
I think I was listening to a clip or I was reading an article that Jim Ross made, or someone was talking shit. And they said that UFC is doing pro wrestling better than pro wrestling now, because you said you don't really watch the business anymore. You're more into the MMA stuff.
Yeah.
Have you ever been a fan of American wrestling? Were you as a kid growing up in Minnesota?
I'd see wrestling here and there as a kid, but it wasn't until the mid-'90s when I found out about ECW that I really started watching it. I was 15 years old. A friend of mine said, "Hey, do you want to go watch this wrestling show?" And he said, and I was like, maybe. And he said, "Yeah, if you come with, just bring weapons." And I said, "What?" He's like, "Oh, stuff for the wrestlers to hit themselves with, just things laying around the house, cookie sheets, whatever." I'm like, okay, I didn't know what he meant, but I went, and when I realized ECW was a step up, in the direction of real injuries and risks and everything like that, I couldn't believe it. And yeah, just started to go into those events at least one a month, usually several times a month. I was on the East Coast, United States, and so I'd go see those shows. But
so let me just say something about The Trade.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Would you call it a film or a documentary or a little bit of both?
Yeah, so The Trade, it's the film that I just released. It's a docudrama, so it's half scripted, it's half documentary, but it's the story of how I got into this world of ultra-violent deathmatch wrestling, kind of what it did to me and how I got out of it, and basically the impact it's had on a younger generation.
But were you watching, because when you were 15, what year was that? Because was ECW going on? Because y'all were doing kind of like the backyard wrestling, almost extreme style backyard wrestling back in the day when you were a kid. And before that, man, dude, you hang out with a couple of some wild kids. Y'all did some crazy shit growing up.
Yeah.
I mean, we raised hell in a little small South Texas town that I came up in, but you guys kind of took it to a different level.
Yeah, it would have been 95 that I started watching. I was 15 in 95 and started watching ECW. And yeah, everybody, I mean, people talk about the backyard wrestling craze, and I say, you know what, go back hundreds of years. Backyard wrestling always existed. I'm sure you see whatever professional athletes, and you go home as kids, and you want to try it in the backyard, But we got around ECW at that impressionable age when these pro athletes are doing this stuff, and so yeah, we went home and we're like, hey man, let's do this stuff ourselves. And
When you were watching the ECW stuff, there were some guys that were doing, no pun intended, extreme stuff. You know, a lot of barbed wire, but not necessarily the deathmatch stuff, but high-risk stuff. And you were a big fan of Sabu.
Yeah.
And obviously Mick Foley came through there as well. But there were also some hellacious technicians there with, Malenko, Lance Storm. Eddie Guerrero came through there.
Yeah, he sure did.
Those guys. So were you a fan of that at all, or did you go to more of the hardcore stuff?
You know what? My dream was to wrestle for ECW. And in my mind, that was the pinnacle of that genre of wrestling, the perfect mix of athleticism, of a little bit more risk and violence, of young, energetic, athletic guys, but bringing in some of the veterans too to kind of coach them along or teach them about ring performance, that sort of thing. Because when I got into wrestling, I wrestled for a company called CZW, Combat Zone Wrestling. And the guy who was running the company at the time, in his mind, the next step was to simply top the violence of ECW. And that, truthfully, was never my intention. I do take responsibility for everything I've done in the ring. I mean, it was my own motivation as well. But I'd say that was the perfect mix of the extreme and just really solid wrestling. So yeah, the total package really entertained me in ECW, and I love that. The show had so many different aspects all combined in one.
I think you said you were at a show when I was passing through there.
I wanted to talk about that. Do you remember what your last match was in ECW?
No, I remember I wrestled Mikey Whipwreck, and he beat me for the championship. It might have been was it a three-way with Sandman and Mikey Whipwreck?
You're right. Yeah, that was it. It was at the ECW Arena. Would that have been late 95, early 96? It would have been
late 95 because I ended up going to WWF in the back end of 95, if not early 1996. And that's when I got the call, and I wanted to finish up with Paul E.
Yeah, that was incredible. It's just funny we were there for the same show. It might have been December to Dismember, if I remember the title.
It might have been, but you were there as a fan, or
I was as a fan. No, I was just I would have been 15 years old, but yeah, I was there for that. It was a three-way, and I think you guys did something with some tables and a ladder or something.
Nothing like stuff that you would go on to do. I was sitting there watching YouTube last night, and I was watching a lot of your stuff, and I stumbled across an old Vince McMahon interview when he was on the Conan O'Brien show. And he was promoting the ladder match that I was going to have against him and Shane. And I'll never forget when they pitched that ladder match to me. I'd seen a few before, right?
Yeah.
And I looked at him, and I've kind of been, if you've seen any of my career, I'm a ground-based guy.
Yeah, exactly.
So all of a sudden, Vince had pitched me a ladder match, and I'm thinking, what the F are you? He's half crippled, and, I'm beat to shreds, and Shane will do anything.
Yeah.
I said, I'm not known for that. I said, what are we going to do? Mm-hmm. And so, I think we had some 6-foot ladders, even some step ladders out there. It was a cluster, and I wasn't proud of that match, but I was sitting there just reliving some of the stuff, and I was like, Jesus Christ, what was he thinking, man?
Yeah.
What was he thinking?
Yeah.
As you got into the business, you said CZW. But was that where you started because you were trained at Body Slammers Gym?
Yeah, Al Snow's Body Slammers, and
Al Snow's
Body. No, it was right when his hardcore title run picked up, in I think it was WWE at the time. But it was right when that was picking up, and so he was really busy. He did come by the school, but it was a couple of people that he had brought up that were training me. And I had heard a funny sort of legendary story. You can tell me if it's true or not. But apparently, when you went to, I guess, from ECW to WWE, did you brush up on your skills a little bit with Al training?
Oh, absolutely. Because when I went to ECW, my tricep was torn off my right elbow. It was finally starting to heal up, but I still wasn't cleared to work yet.
Yeah.
So when Paul called me, he goes, "Hey, man, I want you to come work for me." I said, "Shit, Paul, what am I going to do? I can't work." He goes, "You ain't got to work. Promos." So anyway, I was cutting promos, and then, Paul wanted to put that belt on me.
Yeah.
And I said, "No, man." I said, "If I come in here from, the big-ass WCW, people are going to know I'm going to win the title." So I refused to win the title from Mikey Whipwreck. Mm-hmm. But those matches were, if you've been out of the ring for a pretty good while, you got that ring rust, you really can't perform up to what you need to perform. So those matches in ECW were rudimentary at best. And I enjoyed working with Mikey Whipwreck and Sandman.
Yeah.
Sandman will swing the shit out of that damn kendo stick. Holy cow.
You want to know what's funny? I wrestled him, it probably would have been about 6 years after that match that you just mentioned, versus him in ECW. And we did a table, ladder, chair match. It was a 3-way match, but coming up and developing my own name at the time, but I'm still marking out, like, cause I saw this guy growing up as a kid, and we were trying to get him to do cane spots. Like, we were coming up, like, hitting the ropes, duck, and we wanted him to, like, swing. Like, well, the other dude had an idea, like, right at his face, and he was going to put his hands up and kind of take it on the backs of his hands, and it would have been a really cool spot, this athletic guy. And Sandman, he's like, nah, he's like, I don't want to hurt you guys. He's like, I had my time. I'm just here to put you over. And we're like, dude, come on, we want to do some extreme spots. And so we got him to bump us a little bit, but he just wanted to show up and put us over. It was kind of funny, but I heard stories of him caning the hell out of people back in the day.
God damn, man, he hit me a couple times just right between the eyes with that. I mean, I expected
those hurt.
And I wouldn't have had it any other way, but man, when I went back and I was just thinking to myself as I was taking those things, like, man, this son of a bitch really swings that thing.
It hurts.
So it is what it is. If you were taught to be like a normal professional wrestler, headlocks and, high spots and all that stuff, how long did it take you to graduate into that hardcore extreme style or deathmatch style? How would you what is that style that you like to refer to as?
Yeah, well, CZW calls it ultra-violent. The ultra-violent. You have hardcore wrestling, and they're like, well, we present ultra-violence. So, but I just say deathmatch wrestling. It's kind of what I was known for. But it was very intense training at his school. I was told coming into it, this is going to be the most painful part of your career, because I actually lived at the school, and we would train 6 days a week, 6 hours a day. So it was a very intensive course. And the primary, basically the primary course was just, I think like 2 months long, something like that. Now you could stay there longer if you wanted. And I did. I stayed there for a little while, lived at the school, just keep training if you want. But like the primary intensive course was 6 weeks. And so some people are surprised I tell them this, but we would start out in the morning. I mean, we learned how to bump pretty quickly, but we would start out with you basically cross your arms across your chest and 50 back bumps. And then I'm trying to think, I believe 50 body slams and then 50 flip bumps when we learn flip bumps. So I don't really get headaches. I'm very fortunate. Like even when I've had concussions, like I don't seem to really struggle with headaches afterwards, but during training, I struggled with headaches because when you're taking that many bumps, your head kind of hit off the mat. And so, I remember having to take Tylenol or something. Like everybody had, a bottle of, over the counter, of course, pain pills, but like, it was intense and we were sore and we were bruised. It wasn't the most painful part of my career because of the path I chose, but that's a rough way to learn, when you're training that much, each day.
So when did you wrestle for a little bit? Kind of, let's call that pro style.
Yeah.
Did you have a bunch of matches like that and then graduate into?
The majority of the matches I've had in my career are just regular non-death matches, but it's simply the fact that stuff gets more attention. So that's kind of what's risen to the surface. But the vast majority of the matches I had were regular wrestling matches. And especially when I moved to Minnesota and I was living there, I found a couple companies that would want to do the extreme stuff, but that crowd, that fan base wasn't quite ready for it. It was more just like, they remember the old, I guess, like Nick Bockwinkel and The Claw and all those local guys. That's still their idea of what wrestling is. And so they let me do some high spots and some flips and kicks and all that stuff. But most of them didn't want to really do the blood and the weapons. So.
Well, man, your career basically lasted. I mean, you went on your pretty much 10-year hiatus and you made your comeback, which was basically a send-off for Little Mondo, right, Rory? Yeah. Mm-hmm. But your basic career lasted 4 or 5 years?
Yeah, it was just under 5 years.
But I mean, dude, that was redlined at about 9,000 RPMs.
Yeah.
So you had a lot of miles on you in a short period of time.
Yeah, what concerns me a little bit is, I have current wrestlers that the guys that were inspired by deathmatch tell me, like, I look up to you and what you did. But the thing is, most people when they get into wrestling, they're thinking this is going to be a career. This is going to be a longer term venture. My initial goal was to only wrestle for about 1 to 2 years. It was going to be a break after high school. Then I was going to go to art school and continue on with life. So I actually did it longer than I had planned on, but I was burning the candle at both ends, and I knew it wasn't, a viable way to have a long-term wrestling career.
You actually planned to get in the business for a year or two and then get out?
Yeah, that was it.
I've never heard that.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Because it takes you a couple more years to really learn the business.
I didn't understand. Like I in my mind, I was watching ECW, and then I start lifting weights and trying to put weight on. In my mind, I'm going to finish school. I'll send Paul Heyman a letter, and I'll be working for him. I didn't really know how it worked. We all are kind of stupid when we get into it, but that was my plan. I'm going to ECW. I'm going to wrestle with Sabu and RVD and Tommy Dreamer and all these guys and quit. That was my plan. So.
But you got caught up in it.
Yeah, I got caught up in it, and it's hard to shake, isn't it? I mean.
It took me, once I was forced into retirement due to my neck, it took me 3 years to come to grips with it and kind of turn myself into a civilian. I've told that story enough times, so I won't tell it again, but it took a while for me to get it out of my system. That's how much I loved it.
Yeah.
And was just basically addicted to it, I guess, and the thrill of the crowd, the adrenaline. Makes me want to ask you the question, do you believe in luck or fate? Because, dude, when you knocked on my gate and opened up the gate, and I knew you was going to come walking in here, and we had talked, and you seemed like a very intelligent person. Dude, you're lucky to be walking, and you're even lucky to be alive.
Yeah.
Doing some of the stuff I've seen you do in the trade, and it's a fantastic film. I loved it. I enjoyed it. I suggest everybody check it out. Matt will drop more information on how to do that later, but do you believe you're lucky to be alive?
I'm a man of faith, and what I mean by that is when I was wrestling, I had a lot of people concerned about me and praying for me. And I mean, really, really seriously praying for me to the extent that my sister, she's 2.5 years older than me. There were a couple of times, I kid you not, she'd wake up in the middle of the night so overcome by concern for me that she'd stay up and she'd just be praying and praying and praying for me. A couple of times she called me and she said, "Are you planning something really dangerous?" And I'd say, "Well, yeah, I've got this deathmatch tournament coming up." And she's like, "I just really feel like something bad could happen. And, please just consider what you're going to do." And so I really feel like I was protected, if that makes sense, through a lot of what I was doing. But I came to an awareness, and it was very clear. It started to dawn upon me as I'm approaching my mid-20s. It's not going to be this way if you keep doing this. It's just like you've been protected for a while, but you need to learn to make wiser decisions. And so I feel like there's a bit of a grace period, I guess you could say. But it's like you have to grow up at some point, and you just can't keep rolling the dice. I shouldn't be as healthy as I am today. I'm pursuing stunts right now in Hollywood. I'm healthy enough to do that. And it doesn't make sense. I shouldn't be this healthy. But if I didn't get out of wrestling, I'm certain something really bad would have happened to me eventually.
Taking all the bumps, all the falls that you did in your pro wrestling career, did you have to train to be a stuntman?
It's funny because I'm learning this business, and I'm learning it's not so much like they'll kind of laugh if you say I trained at this school and I trained at this stunt school. It's mostly just becoming friends with the stunt coordinators and somehow finding a way to prove yourself. Yeah, just recently I was...
an opportunity.
Yeah. Just recently I was actually close to here, Digital Domain. There's a studio, long history. Spielberg just shot Ready Player One there. David Fincher has shot a lot of his stuff there. Legendary, Robert Zemeckis. But yeah, we're shooting, it's a new video game that's coming out, and there are a lot of action sequences. And I have a friend who's directing the cinematic sequences for that. And he got me an in. It's taken me about a year of paying my dues and figuring out how to join the Screen Actors Guild. And now I've joined, and now I'm eligible for all these stunts that I want to pursue. But this was right before I joined. So it was kind of like they were doing me a favor by letting me come in to do stunts for this. And they were doing explosions where basically you're wearing a harness and with a cable that either attaches to your chest or your back. And then two pullers just yank as hard as they can, and you go flying. And they want you to relax your body. So it's kind of like whiplash, whichever way you're going. They did the first round with an older guy that had been around for a while. And but then the stunt coordinator, he's like, okay. He's like, now I'm going to pull the hell out of Ryan's friend. That's me. And I wasn't like bring it on. But in my head, I'm thinking, oh, I can't wait. Because I was watching this dude, and he's actually late 40s. I could tell he's walking all kind of stiff and everything. And I found out he was ex-military, and I was just looking at his body and the way he walks, and I said, were you a parachute jumper? And he's like, I was. And because it seemed like to me like he damaged his knees and his back. But I was watching him take his bumps, and I was just thinking, I can outdo this guy so easily. And so, but I just walked up, and whatever they did, I took it. And I think there were 2 takes where he wanted to adjust how I did it, basically relaxing my body more or whatever. And then it was just like, he's got it. Everything they did, I could take the bumps. And so, yeah, I think it's more just kind of getting the opportunity and then coming through is how this stunt business works. So yeah, I will have to train. I hired a guy to train with him recently. I'm learning just throwing punches and everything. We were doing a sequence together, punch back and forth, block, whatever, just throwing hits and reaction, snapping your head back. And he kind of froze up in the one. He looked like he went blank, and I was like, whoa, what happened? And he's like, with that one punch, he's like, you came a little close. And I said, oh, I was like, oh, sorry. I didn't feel that was close at all. Obviously in wrestling, you really connect, just loosen up your hand a little bit. But I said, I'm very much in control of what I'm doing. I'm like, I'm sorry, I can leave a bigger gap, because he's saying you can miss me by like 8 inches,
Well, I hear it's all camera angles.
Oh, that's exactly what it is. And so what he said to me is, get in the habit of leaving a bigger gap, because if by chance you catch the big name actor in the face, like, boy, you're in trouble. You know what I mean? So yeah, it is going to take some training to get.
It's going to read for the camera, so leave the gaps.
Yeah.
Star.
Yeah. And it's your instinct to think, oh, I can get closer. Let's get it closer. But you don't want to do that. So I'm trying to get that in my head right now.
Let's go back to the trade. Let's go back to the deathmatch stuff. So if you're trying to get involved, and right now you're select Nick Mondo before you drop the L and go sick. Mm-hmm. So you're trying to figure out a way to take all this offense.
Yeah.
So you get over. People say, hey, man, guy's crazy, or hey, I like this guy because he's got balls, or whatever it is. When did you start putting together your offensive arsenal? Mm-hmm. Because, and doing some of the stuff that I've seen you do, and some of those big death matches, I mean, there's no rehearsal. These aren't things you drill over and over again. They're almost a one-off. Mm-hmm. Or you might have seen someone do something and you do a variation of it, but have added something to it. So, dude, the risk is off the charts. So how do you go about just knowing what you can and can't get away with? Because I looked at some of the stuff that you're doing, kind of going back to, when I said, I think you're lucky to be alive, much less walking. You seem to have this, I don't know whether it was an energy or a charisma around you, or this protective force. I was like, this guy just keeps putting himself through shit, and he just keeps getting up. It's just like nothing I've ever seen. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you're, like you said, maybe you were protected by something, but in putting together all this stuff, dude, how did y'all come up? Or you specifically, so you can't answer for everybody, you can answer for Nick Mondo. Dude, how do you come up with all this stuff?
The moveset, that was just a combination of my favorite wrestlers. I was just absorbing it all in ECW. I loved it. But when I saw Sabu, that was the moment that the lights really came on for me. Just, wow, this is maybe something I want to do. But then eventually I learned about Hayabusa. I'm sure you know of him in Japan. He wrestles a style similar to Sabu. Beautiful moonsaults, one of the most beautiful moonsaults I've ever seen. Martial arts, kicks, he's got some kung fu, taekwondo type maneuvers. And then the risks. He would do barbed wire matches, explosion matches in FMW. I mean, they'd rig these rings with a couple of times they get burning so bad the wrestlers just have to bail on the match. It was really risky stuff. And, Rob Van Dam, the kicks, I always liked watching him. I really was a fan of Chris Jericho and how he brought it all together, and, his moonsaults, his lion salts, and just real high impact, high spots. But as far as how to absorb or get through a lot of the spots, this was something I learned early on. Basically, when there's a car accident with somebody who's been drinking, sometimes people end up dying, but the drunk driver thrown from the car gets up. He's got a couple of stitches, but he's okay.
He's relaxed.
And yeah, that's what it is. And so you don't want to do these spots afraid. If you can relax, and I'm not trying to give people like, here's how you do this stuff, but I'm saying that was how I got through a lot of it. Was just, I feel the fear, but right before the move takes place, I relax myself, wrap my head around it, and then just let it go and let my body go. And there were times when I tensed up and I was fully aware that hurt a lot more, the fact that I was tensed up during that.
Yeah, but dude, what are you thinking when you're laying there? I don't know how long a lot of these matches have lasted. I watched the trade, but there's a lot of highlights, there's a lot of clips. So when you're going through this process and you guys are breaking out the fluorescent tubes, it's barbed wire, it's crashing through tables, chairs, all this stuff. And dude, I saw you get up from some of these things and your back is just literally embedded with fluorescent light bulbs. Someone's got a water gun spraying off your back after one of the matches, nothing but blood and glass pouring from you. When you're going through this, I always consider myself pretty tough.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying I want to walk into a bar and get in a fight with nobody. That's not what I'm saying. I got dropped on my head and survived that. On that moment, I figured I was 99% lucky and 1% tough. I got a good break on that because I didn't get paralyzed for the rest of my life.
Yeah.
But when you're laying there, and we've all had our chair shots and a couple stitches here or there, but when I'm seeing some of the stuff that I saw you go through, dude, what are you thinking?
What am I thinking?
Because we're talking. You're selling.
Yeah.
I'm talking about this. This is my family friendly show. We're talking about real effing pain here.
Yeah. When I would go
and torture.
When you go into those matches, it's always in the back of my head, whether it's 3 or 4 really dangerous things I'm going to do. It's like a checklist, and it's this anxiety that I'm carrying. And again, as you get older, you get a little bit wiser. You realize, why am I doing this to myself? Like, this is very unhealthy. But in the match, it's like this relief that occurs. I made it through that. I made it through the next one. I made it through this one. And it's this tremendous relief, like once it's done, once you get through all those things. But again, eventually I came to the realization, it's just like I'm rolling the dice with my own life, the rest of my life. But it's funny you mentioned one of the few things I didn't want to take was chair shots to the head. And I'm sure you've taken many more than me, and really stiff ones. I've seen how stiff some of those are. Those hurt.
But I put my hands up. You absorb a little bit.
I'm sure a couple caught you, right?
Yeah.
You see that flash of white light?
Yeah, every now and then.
Feel your teeth kind of clash?
A lot of those guys took them hands down and just took them like that.
Yeah.
I thought that was their decision, not mine.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've taken a few.
That was one thing that scared me, and I would oftentimes tell guys before the match, I don't want any chair shots to the head. And I used to think, maybe somebody's going to look at this guy and think, what are you kidding? Like, swing one at me, but nobody ever did. And I think it's because I took so much other damage that they're like, okay, if he doesn't want chair shots,
you get passed on the chair shots. You're putting everything else out there.
Yeah, but figure if you mess your brain up, it's over. You know, I mean, like you break an arm.
But what's the deal? Because it's a straight up parallel of deathmatch wrestling.
Yeah,
your specialty, correct? Mm-hmm. Okay, my style wrestling was regular pro style. Okay?
Yeah.
One is not better than the other or whatever. I'm just saying there are two styles. My goal is to go out there, and I was a dude, 6'1", 250.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to tell a story in about 15 to 20 minutes. Pissed off dude, anti-authority. We're going to take the crowd on a ride doing kind of normal shit, right? Y'all go out there, same thing. You're trying to tell a story. It's ultra violent, but you're still trying to tell a story.
Yeah.
But you're going through a lot more wear and tear to tell this story. Some people will say, oh man, those guys are a bunch of guys that couldn't make it doing real wrestling.
Yeah.
Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Real wrestling.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that in the storytelling process, or just your response to someone to say, hey, those guys can't work, they're just doing a bunch of crazy shit.
It's very irrational what we were doing. So I completely agree with you. I would even agree with some of the guys can't work. Since I've left the business, I've actually been really impressed with the athletic caliber of some of the guys that are doing deathmatch. But I'll say it's a combination of things. Some of it is these guys maybe can't work, and this is how they're going to get attention. I'm giving the negative examples. I mean, like I did it, so I'm guilty of everything. But some of it is you're a little bit insecure. Maybe you're afraid, you know, that you're not going to get over. You're desperate. How am I going to get attention? But also, some of it is it's really fun. It's really exciting, and it's really a rush to go through a dangerous spot, have the crowd go crazy and you didn't actually get hurt. It's roulette, it's like playing Russian roulette. So because a lot of that stuff, you'd be surprised, the fans would be surprised. Oftentimes it doesn't hurt as much as you'd think, but then something really stupid will hurt you like tremendously. Like a power bomb can be one of the most painful things ever if you whack your head really good when you take a power bomb. But also an aspect I came to realize in my film, The Trade delves into this, is if you're willing to be involved in deathmatch wrestling, to this extent, there's some sort of dysfunction. There's something not healthy in your thinking. And not everybody wants to slow down and really take a look at that. I wanted to. I'm like, I want to get past this. I want to get healthy, and I want to realize what's wrong in my thinking. And I did talk to a few of the guys, and yeah, there's something that happened to them in their childhood, or this or whatever, that led to this self-destructive behavior. Because you have to have a certain low self-worth to do that. I mean, even if you're the man, if you're the top of the heap, the fact that you're destroying your body that much, it's saying, I don't have that much worth. I'm willing to break bones and get knocked unconscious, get a cut or 60 stitches just for whatever the pay is. Your self-worth is low. Was
your self-worth low? I mean, you were a charismatic, good-looking kid. And especially you go out there with a gimmick. I mean, you look like $1 million, and you had a conversation with one of the guys that you really looked up to at the time, wife beater, Matt Martini. Mm-hmm. And you asked him, as you guys are getting ready to go out for a match, and you basically said, why do you do this?
Yeah.
And he said, bleed or cut myself.
Yeah.
And then you mentioned something about maybe you felt guilty.
Yeah. Yeah.
Explain that to me. What did you feel guilty for, or did you have a low self-esteem?
Yeah, so I did have this conversation with a wrestler named Wife Beater, and it was right before we had a really, really violent match. And it was when it was starting to dawn on me, something's wrong here, And I just asked him, like, why are you willing to do this? And he did give me the answer. He had to think about it, but he said, bad childhood. And so he knew in the back of his mind, it's because I don't know what happened in his childhood, if he's abused or what, but that's why I do this. And then he said to me, how about you? Like, why do you do this? And again, I was not ready for this question. I was like, oh man, crap. But he's looking at me, and I just said, guilt problems. And so that was something that I had to slowly unpack. But I show the imagery to conjure some of this in my film. It's not super straightforward, but I legitimately did sit through a church service. I was 15 or 16 years old. It was about the crucifixion of Christ. Very, 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 very graphic, way beyond anything that's in the Bible, just heaping on the guilt and the weight of all this, and how Christ was tortured, and, describing the whips that they scourged him with, straps of leather with pieces of broken glass and metal, which historically probably is accurate. Whipped him, put the robe on, waited until his back scabbed over, and, pulled the robe off and all this stuff. It's very graphic, but the woman did say at the end of the message, the woman pastor, she said, there's nobody in this room, in this congregation, who would willingly take that upon themselves. But Jesus did, out of his love for you and this and that. And so to me, it was just this weight of guilt dropping down. But the notion that somebody else took my beating for me and that I should feel guilty about it, like, I just went out of my freaking mind. Like, I legit was like, if you could show me a contract where I could sign right now, I didn't want to die. But at the end of my life, if that's how I have to die, the crucifixion, like, I am 110% willing to sign on the dotted line. And so I'm not kidding you. I went home and I prayed and I said, Jesus, like, I believe in you. I admire what you did, but I need you to know I don't accept it for myself. I do not accept it. From that point on, from age 16, I became obsessed with the notion of self-harm, and it almost blended itself in. That was right, like I said, age 15, 16, when I got into ECW, found out about Sabu. Look at this dude with the scars on his body. And it almost like blended right into deathmatch wrestling, and I was so obsessed with the notion of punishment and self-harm that I had signed up for the Marines, the Marine Corps. I walked into the office. And I remember the man laid maybe like 8 cards on his desk. And he said, which one of these is the reason why you're joining the Marine Corps? You know, financial stability, to get money for college, all this stuff. And I was looking for punishment, and I think I saw self-discipline, and it was the closest that I could come up with. So I pointed at that one. But I knew in the back of my head, that's not why I'm doing this, because I had heard that the Marine boot camp is pretty brutal, and I wanted to go through it. And so ultimately, I was going to be a helicopter mechanic. I had my date of leave. I was sworn in. I started training with them. But then things were brewing up in the Middle East, and I was like, you know what? Like, I don't want to go to war. It's like, it's not my motivation, and I don't want to be a Marine. It's like, I just wanted to go through something really punishing, you know, like that's all I wanted. And so I backed out of it, and they freaked out. They were yelling at me, and I just said, I know how this works. Up until my date of leave, I can back out of this. And I backed out. But that was a big part of my motivation. It wasn't just guilt. I mean, it's fun stuff. Wrestling is really fun stuff. It's exciting. It's adventure, you know. After 12 years of, you know, going through, finishing school, graduating high school, it's like, I want to take a break and do something exciting. And so that was part of it. And at first doing the violent stuff, the hardcore stuff, it was fun. It's a rush. But then you do a couple of the real heavy death matches, the fans go crazy, the promoters go, oh, and they start booking you into that stuff over and over. And then it's just like this spiraling tornado of chaos, and the environment's just out of control, you know. And
do you work yourself into a shoot? Whereas, hey man, I got to have more, and I got to have more. I've got to up the ante because that I'm sick Nick Mondo. I mean, what is your relationship with pain? Going through the business or going through life? Well, experience some type of physical pain, you know, an injury, this, that, whatever, in the business of wrestling, you know, whatever it is, deathmatch stuff, even more extreme than that.
Yeah. What's
your relationship with pain now versus what it was then? Because you wanted to inflict it upon yourself. There's part in the docudrama where you're whipping yourself.
Yeah.
Dude, it's insane. I mean, do you like it?
No, I'm not somebody who enjoys pain, but I'm somebody who, it's sort of like this ferocious side of me where I look at it and I think, you're not going to stop me. Like, I'm not going to give in to you. And so I do have a higher tolerance for it. But again, when the adrenaline goes away, when it wears off in your regular life, it's like, I don't want to be a tough guy. Like, this sucks, man. Just like getting up and having to pull on the railing to walk up the steps because my ankle is in such bad shape, or bend over to brush my teeth and then stand up straight because my lower spine hurts, you know, that sort of thing. It's just like, I don't want to deal with this all day long. But in the ring, I was never on any drugs. Some people ask that, and no, I was never on anything, but it doesn't hurt. A lot of it didn't hurt as bad as you would imagine it would. Like, there's this wrestler, Nate Hatred, and he actually just died not too long ago in a car crash. It's very sad, but big, frightening, really, really strong man. And I helped get him into CZW, and they wanted him to do a barbed wire boards match, and he had actually never done anything like that. And he came to me all nervous, and he's like, I don't know, what do I, like, can you help me, like, prepare for this? And I said, listen, here's what's going to happen. You'll run your opponent, you'll get flipped over, crash through the board. You'll feel 1, maybe 2 little needle pricks, and you'll think, whoa, it didn't get me. The crowd will go crazy, and you sell it, and that'll be it. And thank you so much. And he came back afterwards, and he's like, it's exactly what you described. Now, I mean, I've gotten caught in barbed wire before, like when it replaces the ropes and you land in it and it hooks in you and you have to pull it out or wherever it's stuck. That really hurts. But generally just landing on it, you know, it's not as bad. A lot of the stuff isn't as bad as you'd imagine. So it's a real rush when the fans think you just died and you didn't, you know. You've experienced that. I mean, man, you know, on the same level, but it's just like selling things to make a crowd believe. It's a real rush getting that pop out of the crowd. You know,
what is the deal with the CZW wrestling? Mm-hmm. Are you at odds with those people now? Friendly with them?
You know, the guy who ran it back in the day, John Zandig.
That's what I wanted to ask you about. But yeah, you weren't mentioning his name. I didn't know if there was heat there.
No, there's not heat. It was just a bad combination, I'd say, because I was somebody who didn't know the limit, didn't know where to stop. And then he's somebody who's going to try and expand that limit. And I remember coming up through some of the indies where I want to break a table, I want to use barbed wire, and they're like, no, come on. I get to CZW, and it's like, how many tables do you want in this match? And as a young idiot, I'm like, oh, are you kidding me? I can break 3 tables in this match? It's just like, like I'd show up for a tournament of death, and it wasn't even my idea to hit my move, the assault driver, off the top of a rider truck through a light tube log cabin and a bunch of tables in the opening round. I knew I was going to do 3 matches that night and go to the finals. And John Zandig says to me, I want you to do that to finish your first match. And I would have had no problem in my last one. I'm like, I don't care if I get hurt, I'm hurt, and that's it. But he, it was his idea for me to do that in the first round. So basically it was an environment of enablers and an addict, if you want to call it that. It's like,
I was wondering if it was a type of addiction.
Absolutely. I'd say it's a type of addiction. And that's why it's so dangerous for me. And it's why I get so many offers. I mean, just last weekend was CZW's Cage of Death. And they were trying to get me to come in for that, just to do a little something. And I was considering it, and I was talking it through with them, but it's like, the heroin addict shouldn't go hang out with the junkies, or, it's like, I can have a whiskey, I can have, some beers, I like red wine. It doesn't get out of control for me, but I'm very aware that some people, they just can't, you know what I mean? When I'm drinking, I know when I'm going to get sick if I keep drinking. It's just like, if I'm going to be driving somewhere, like, I'm not going to drink before, like, it's not a problem. But I don't think that wrestling at all is a bad thing. It's wonderful. It's inspiring. I see a good, even, a hardcore match, whatever. I love it. But I get in that environment and it just pulls me in, and it's out of control because I don't feel that protective fear that people generally have. And so it's a bad combination. So I just need to cut it off and stay away.
Alexa isn't the only one with breaking news. Make sure to hang around at the end of this podcast for the latest breaking headlines on the AP News Minute.
Hello, guys. It's MMA fighter Chael Sonnen. Check out my podcast, You're Welcome, with Chael Sonnen every Wednesday and Friday right here at PodcastOne. We cover the latest in mixed martial arts and everything else going on in the world of sport. Listen free to You're Welcome with Chael Sonnen, exclusively available at PodcastOne.com and on the Podcast One app. If you love the show, share it with a friend and leave us a rating and review.
This is the Steve Austin Show.
When you took that bump in the first match, you were going to wrestle 3 times that night, and it was the assault driver,
yes,
off the rider truck. Zandig suggested it.
Yeah.
Okay. Was that before or after you had done the building bump with him?
The next year, in the following Tournament of Death, that's when John Zandig and I went off the top of the roof. And so, yeah, that was the following year.
Was that his idea?
That was his idea again. He called me up on the phone about a week before. He said, would you take the mother effing bomb, that's what it's called, off the roof at this place through burning tables? That was the plan at the time. I paused and I said, sure. I told you earlier about my sister getting these premonitions, whatever you want to call it. This is one of them where she called me, and this was the worst one. She just said, like, please, like, what's going on? And finally I told her, well, I'm going to go off the building, through these tables. And she's begging me not to do it. And I said, look, I actually knew I was going to quit wrestling after that Tournament of Death too. I said, look, it's my last appearance. Don't worry about it. But she was just really heavily burdened about that. But the thing is, with the rider truck, the year prior, I showed up early before the show. I said, no problem, we'll do it. I went up on top of the truck. They had the tables there. I said, move them out. Okay, they moved them out. I said, move them out more. What are you talking about? It's like 8 feet from the truck. You're gonna hit the asphalt. And I said, don't touch them. Leave them there. That went so smoothly, just flawless, like butter. You look at the physics of it, you step, your body's moving out, and I could see where I was going to land. Now, there's a moment, the dude's sitting on my shoulders, and I yank his hands, he flips forward, and so I lose my vision, and so it was scary. I couldn't quite see when I'm falling, but I stayed calm. It was just like butter. He didn't feel anything. It was perfect. The next year...
But going back to that bump,
Yeah.
you actually tore a vein in your back.
This was the following year, the one where John and I
thought
went
you were
off.
bleeding profusely then, and you still had to go down and work the match with the other guy. Mm-hmm. When did you do the one where was that the bump was ending?
Yes, the following year.
Because if those tables would have been on fire, you were basically paralyzed.
Yeah.
You had burned.
Yeah, yep. But I showed up to that event, and we were standing outside there before the fans came in, looking at it, and he's kind of chuckling, and he goes, "What do you think?" And I said, "John, that's too high. It was going to be my second round match. So stupid that wasn't like to end the tournament. So stupid that I would get up from that, you know? But that was his plan, was for me to beat him in the second round and go on to the finals." And I said, "It's too high," and he didn't like that. And he goes, "We'll think about it and get back to me." I'm like, "What do you mean think about it?" And he walked away. Just whatever. So my first round match was against J.C. Bailey, who has since died. It's very, very sad. That the guy had a drug addiction problem and everything, died very young. Anyway, I'm calling my first match with J.C. Bailey, my first round match. It was a light tubes and ladders match, and fans are coming in. John walks up to me when I'm talking with Bailey, and he goes, "So what do you think?" I said, "About what?" And he goes, "Taking the bump off the roof." I said, "John, I told you, it's too high." And he goes, "Well, the fans are already in. They saw the tables, and, you know, they're expecting it." And so I just said, "Fine, whatever, man, just whatever, fine." And so when you said that I have a self-worth problem, my confidence was very high, my self-confidence, but that's different from self-worth. And so even if I didn't feel I was worthless, I clearly had a self-worth problem. And so it's just like, okay, yeah, let's do it. And I figured it'll be fine, like everything else, I'll get through it. But we never got to set up the tables, like I said, ahead of time. And so, you know, the staff, event staff people, you can't blame them. They're doing what they think is safe. They set them up against the building. We get up there. John picks me up. He walks to the edge, and he goes, "Oh, F." He's like, "The tables are too close." I'm looking down like, this is higher than I thought it was. I know what that means. I'm going to overshoot. And I was scared, but in that last minute, I did relax myself. Blow your breath out, relax, you'll be okay. And I did that in the air. Was expecting the familiar table break. You hit the ground and it's soft, you know, but it wasn't that way. My head clipped. It was a log cabin made out of light tubes, and my head went through that. My head hit the table, broke it, and my body pretty much went straight to the asphalt. And that was horrible. I was knocked out cold, just completely out cold, and came to stinger concussion, which means you can't move your limbs. Everything gone. Like first my sight, my hearing slowly came back, and then I've had this happen before. It's a thought process. Where am I? I'm in a wrestling match. I'm in Delaware. It's tournament of death. And then slowly, okay, it's second round. I'm wrestling Zandig. And then it all came back, and my hearing came back in. And you probably experienced the ref reached down and he gave me 2 fingers, and he said, "If you're okay, squeeze my fingers." And it's the first time I ever squeezed his fingers. And as soon as he walked away, when I moved, I thought I shouldn't have squeezed his fingers.
Shouldn't have given the Iggy. I need a little bit more recoup time.
I'm literally, I was hurt so bad, like I need to be hospitalized.
It's like you're okay in your mind, but are you okay to just kind of continue? Not so fast, my friend.
Yeah, I really wasn't okay. And bleeding like crazy. I got in the back. Nurses, it's so foggy. Like, I didn't even remember that I cut a promo. Like, all of it, it was just so foggy. Like, until I saw the tape afterwards, I didn't even know I cut a promo. But I do remember one of the nurses cleaning me off. Then she's like, "There's a shard of glass here. I'm going to pull it out." And then I hear her gasp, and I was like, "What?" And she's like, "You're like spraying blood." And I turned around, and it was on her arms and her shirt. And then they were panicked, and they didn't know what to do. And then they actually said, "Call the ambulance." And the only person that knew I was going to retire after this was the guy I was wrestling in the final round. I called him because I canceled my booking for his company the next week. He was pissed, but he accepted it. But I said, "Just wrap me up. I want to finish this."
You got one more match.
Yeah, the reason was I didn't want to, like, down the road have to come back and do a big final. I just wanted it to be done with, you know. But I had lost a tremendous amount of blood. But went on and did the finals in very bad shape mentally. My head was just in and out of it. Like, I was hurt bad. Yeah.
With all the pain that you experienced in your career, I know you drink a little bit. I saw you on the film. Do you smoke?
No, I don't. I really enjoy clove cigarettes, but I've had to, I realized very quickly they destroy your lungs so fast. And I used to have asthma when I was a kid, and I can't handle smoke. But yeah, in my film, when my persona, my character, whatever, is just trying to escape and shut everything out, I had him kind of walking the streets of Tokyo in Halloween and trying to disappear into arcades and this dance theater and everything. But I had him just trying to get lost in the haze and the smoke of it all, and smoking and drinking. But
were you a guy that ever got into pain pills, or were they have been counter to maybe what you were trying to do?
Again, it wasn't, my approach with wrestling wasn't so much about feeling pain, but I guess taking damage, I guess you could say. Maybe it was about feeling pain, but I never liked it. But to answer your question, there was drug use going around. I had a couple of times where people would see how badly either my ankle was hurt, that was one time, or after I took the running weed whacker to the stomach. I had a wrestler come up to me and he said, "Hey," held out his hand and he said, "Listen to me, take one of these at a time. Don't take two, take one." And I didn't even know what it was, and I would take them. And whatever that was, it actually didn't help me at all. And I said I was back at my buddy's house afterwards. We were watching a movie. I popped one of them. I was in tremendous pain from taking that weed whacker to the stomach. My whole side was shredded. And, I'm moving, my shirt brushes against it. And 45 minutes into the movie, I popped the second one like an idiot. And then I was like, oh, man. And then I got up and I went to the bathroom and I thought I was going to be sick. I felt like I was going to black out. And I came to and I was just on my knees by the toilet. And I didn't throw up, but I stood up and I looked in the mirror and my face was all white, and I slowly was okay after that. But so that might have been I don't know if it was like Percocet or something, but I remember for an ankle injury, somebody gave me Vicodin, and I realized, whoa, you take these and you feel good. It's I can't really explain it. It's not so much that you don't feel pain, but it doesn't matter. And whatever you're doing, you kind of enjoy it. And I realized that this is a dangerous one. It's a clean drug. You know what I mean? You're not the guy like packing the bowl and
right.
Smoke, whatever, looking like a mess. And, but I've told this story before, but there was a time when I was in the car with some workers. We pulled up outside of a house. I didn't know where we were. And somebody turned around and said, "Mondo, you want some?" And I said, "What? Where are we?" And they said, "Oh, pain pills, Vicodins." And it turned out it was like a pharmaceutical guy who under the radar is selling stuff. Whatever it was, I don't know, like $50 for a certain amount or something.
$20, you got $20 in your pocket.
Yeah, whatever it was right in my pocket. I reached for it, and it was one of those moments where I heard, "This is a turning point." And I stopped and I said, "No, I'm good." But I heard that in my head, "This is a turning point." And so I stopped. And so, yeah, that's one I could feel like I would have to be careful with Vicodin.
What was the culture like, or the vibe like in the locker rooms, and whether it's CZW or any of the deathmatch type shows that you were working? You go to some of the shows, and from when I was green breaking in, and to 5-6 years in business, to being pretty much a veteran or stone cold.
Yeah.
And, from all the way from bottom to middle to top.
Yeah.
Anywhere in there, I've been there. The layout of the matches and the building of a card, use that first match, keep everything in the ring. 6-8 minutes, start the show off, a little razzle-dazzle, nothing crazy. Hey, maybe somewhere out towards the main event, maybe someone will spill out. And then the main event, kind of carte blanche, everything but the kitchen sink, but within the structure or confines of a regular wrestling match.
Yeah.
On a card, when you got all these guys that are looking to make a mark, everybody's looking to get noticed, whether you're on a regular wrestling card or deathmatch type scene. But what is the atmosphere? How competitive is it? I mean, is everybody a friggin' psycho? Because you're very composed and very intelligent, obviously. There's some interesting characters in this film,
yeah, and
some of the other names that I've associated with you as I went through, and did some research. What is that environment like? And not everybody's a rocket scientist in there. And that being said, on a regular card, you got some of the craziest sumbitches in the history of the business. Some of the, like Mick Foley, who's done death matches. Mick's my old travel partner, one of the cheapest guys in the business, just like me, one of the smartest guys in the business. Anyway, sorry to ramble. What's the story like there?
Yeah, well, CZW was the most laid-back locker room I've ever experienced. The only one where I don't walk in and feel pressure to shake everybody's hand. It's just how it is there. Very, very comfortable, very laid back. Even the drugs weren't that bad when I was there. Some guys, I never understood this, but they'd smoke up before their matches, smoke weed, and I don't really have much experience. I tried weed a couple of times and I just don't like it. But I don't understand how that would get you ready for. Maybe it deals with their anxiety or something. But
I don't know. It made me feel like a zombie. Not a fan.
Yeah, you know what I mean. I don't understand how that goes hand in hand. But I'm saying as far as harder drugs, this guy's taking some pills and that guy, but like it wasn't that bad. But actually, right before I got out of CZW, I started seeing some of the guys slipping and starting to become a mess with drugs. But so it was very laid back, and I actually liked the fact I wasn't in ECW, but it seemed to me like if you wanted to steal the card, you could go for it in your match. And that's how it was in CZW. And so while I'm sure there were, competitive feelings going around, there wasn't a ton of real resentment of the other guys. There were a couple guys I didn't get along with. We'd go out there and we'd try and steal the card. And for me anyway, like eventually they'd start putting me in the main events so it wouldn't matter. But I was just like, I'm going out here and I'm giving everything. And I was rewarded for it. I was applauded for it, even by, John, who ran the company. It's just like... In fact, I felt bad for some of the guys that would come in. It seemed like they didn't quite get respect if they weren't willing to harm themselves. Some of the top wrestlers in the indies would come through. CM Punk, I saw a video once, he's on YouTube talking about it. Like he came in and didn't really get any respect from John. And it's just like, that's not the right mindset. Think about like, if you get these guys with name value who can really bring some superb wrestling, treat them like royalty. Make them want to come back. Don't make them prove themselves by getting hurt, by getting their asses kicked. You know what I mean? So some of that is hard. It was hard to get approval from him, from John. He loved me because of what I was willing to do, but he was still like very reluctant to show it. Very reluctant.
But was it because he was a promoter, or he wanted to be alpha, or both?
I'd say both, and I think just his vision was we're going to be the toughest MFers in the business, and if you're not part of that, then get out of here. Like, there's a legendary story that real early, his gimmick, you can tell he really was a fan of the Ultimate Warrior. He got himself, obviously not quite as jacked as Warrior, but I mean, he was big. But there's a story about him just deciding, he's ready. And that confidence can go a long way, but I think he showed up at, I think it was WCW, and pretty much just walked into the offices and, tried to get a job. And I'm sure they gave him a look, but they probably, it sounds like he got rejected, and he probably came out of there with a chip on his shoulder, was probably a fan of the deathmatch stuff, and he's got that fearless thing in him too. And so let's just build something, let's build an empire. I'm not just completely slandering the guy. It's just like he had a vision, and he inspired a lot of us to come and really give ourselves to it, but it's not sustainable whatsoever. Most of these guys didn't have long careers, whether they wanted to or not.
What are your thoughts on that guy? I mean, last I had heard, or from just in talking with Joey Janela and doing the research on that match, that he had broken his back in 3 spots.
Yeah, can you believe it?
Joey almost got his thumb ripped off and severed a tendon. And then so I guess Zanuck had to retire because of all the beatings. He's mid-40s. Dude, what are your thoughts on that guy?
Makes for an exciting show for fans to watch. You show up and it's legitimate life and death situations, and even the fans got to watch out. I've seen fans have to get stitches because they're too close and things fly and hit them, and we bring in the back and we all sign something for them and take pictures and hope they don't sue us, that sort of thing. But really, really bad for business. I mean, some people criticize Paul Heyman for, the way ECW ended, but man, his visionary, company, the fact that he would inspire everybody. We've all seen some of the footage of him, building the locker room.
Promos before the show started.
Yeah.
It was them against the world, and everybody would, it could damn near talk you into doing anything. And, in a good way. It was like the rah-rah speech.
Yeah, and so, whatever his shortcomings were, man, that guy, like the inspiration, the aura, I've never felt what I felt in the ECW arena back in the day in those shows, that energy, But that wasn't the case with CZW. So I think we were just a small fraction of what made ECW so great. Is just like the violence, you know what I mean? And that's not sustainable in the long run.
But I think I've heard Kevin Steen wanted to wrestle Zandig at one time before he hung it up. He obviously not. He's in the WWE now.
Yeah.
But you did. Joey Janela did. I mean, did Rory work with him at Big Bump?
I should know this, but no. I'll say I'm pretty certain.
What was it about the guy that made him the guy that you were the guy, but I mean, for some reason everybody had to do a match with Zandig.
See, you've listed a couple of names, but I don't think a ton of people were necessarily calling him out. He's pretty limited in what he can do. He's actually surprisingly agile for somebody of his size. So I don't think a ton of people. I think people were intimidated by him. He was intimidating. You know, he wouldn't pump the locker room up. He'd kind of sit in the corner and just like, you know, you come to me and talk to me. That sort of aura.
Right.
So, but when you realize the empire that he created, and I think to earn his respect would be such a rite of passage. So maybe some of these guys, Eddie Kingston, I think he talked John into doing a no ropes barbed wire match, and for him it was kind of like getting his blessing, and so it's a real good feeling for yourself, I believe, to get John's blessing, but it's hard to do, and what you have to do to yourself to get his blessing. So maybe that's what it is. It's just a personal.
So you got into business, you were going to go for a year or two and then go about your business and continue on with your life. Mm-hmm. Here 4 or 5 years later, you're so into it, you're so addicted to it. It's heavy. Mm-hmm. The only way for you to get it out of your system is just to leave. So you go to Japan.
Yeah.
How long did it take to make that decision? Or how did you just say, hey, man, I'm in so deep. If I keep going, something bad's going to happen. So you know what? I'm going to haul ass to Japan.
I did a tour of Japan, and that was when I completely fell in love with the country. You can go to other countries, Europe, UK, whatever. We're still on the same planet. But you go to Japan, it's like these people feel like they're all acting. I always at first felt like I'm going to snap my fingers and they're all going to, okay, we'll act like normal people now. But they're just so compliant. They're so respectful. They're so diligent. I fell in love with the culture. I always had a dream of getting back there to work as an artist, as a filmmaker. But part of it was with my life and with my wrestling, the identity. I just wanted a complete new paint job on everything, just complete shift to tuck it all aside. And so, yeah, I was offered a job as a documentary filmmaker. And so I moved to Japan and took that. And I guess it was more about just like turning a page and completely moving on with life, but the wrestling did kind of creep back in, which we can get into with Rory, Little Mondo.
But did you start speaking a language?
Yeah, I had taken Japanese 1 and 2 in community college, slowly preparing, but taking Japanese 1 and 2 is not being ready to speak the language.
Yeah, but then same with going to wrestling school.
Yep.
You don't really learn until you get in the ring. It's on-the-job training.
Yeah.
All of a sudden you're entrenched in society,
yeah.
Their culture, you're there. So did you pick it up?
Yeah, it happened. Getting a job over there, moving there happened quicker than I was expecting, but it's not a fun way to learn a language, but it sure does help if you're forced. They'd send me up to the disaster zone where the earthquake and tsunami hit, and there are times I went just by myself, and it's like, we want you to meet these people and film these interviews, and I'm like, oh, man. So they're so accommodating and so non-confrontational, the Japanese, that it's, I figured it out. But yeah, that was how I picked up the language.
So was it during this time that Rory, who you had picked up on your shoulders,
yeah,
match previously, and all of a sudden, you were like hitting his idol.
Yeah.
So all of a sudden now he's, basically Mondo Jr.
Yeah.
Or Little Mondo. Rory.
When I was wrestling, there was a fan. He would dress up like me. I was Nick Mondo. He was Little Mondo. He'd make a sign and hold it up. And it's kind of funny because I'm telling you, he's the biggest heel in the building back then. The whole crowd sometimes would start chanting, F Little Mondo, F Little Mondo. And I'm not kidding. Like, The kid's like 100 pounds. Not even. He'd stand up on the chair and he'd be cursing him out like, "I'll fight anybody in here," and working the crowd. It was hysterical. Some of the wrestlers, he'd legit get under their skin. Super Dragon, the guy out from California, like Rory legit pissed that guy off a couple times. And I remember this clip that used to be online. Like he's just had enough, and he's just right in little Mondo's face. And finally, he kind of punked him out and made him like slip back a little bit. But like Rory got under his skin. It was really funny. But yeah, he's 10 years younger than me, and I quit wrestling. I knew he was hanging around the school training. Did not know he was going to debut as little Mondo. Carrying on my character, had been practicing my moves, all that stuff, and okay, like, wow, you know. It was funny, you know, and amusing. But I was like, I guess nothing to worry about. He wasn't really doing the violent stuff, but started picking up with that. He got like this terrible cut down his back. He's got this really serious scar going down his back and hurting his knees and things like that. And was really, really starting to bother me just because this is such a concrete example. It's like I knew that I had inspired some people to do these things, but here's somebody who's legitimately just like trying to reenact what I did, which ultimately ended up causing me a lot of physical damage, but also emotional and mental. It was just very unhealthy what I was getting into, and I really cared about this guy. So he did this for over 5 years. He actually wrestled longer than I did. Decided he'd had enough. He was going to do a final match. He told me, just like shoots a text like, "Hey, yo, guess what? I'm going to take the weed whacker to the stomach 2 times, like in his final match." And I'm like, please don't do that. You know, like, I don't want to see you get shredded, you know, this kid, like, reenacting what I did. "No, man, I'm going to do it. I already decided. I want to do it. We teased the weed whacker at the last show." And I'm like, dude, please, like, don't do this. He's like, "No, it's my decision." And at first, I'm just like, dumb kid, let him do it then, you know, whatever. I know what it's like. Nobody's going to tell you what to do. But it was bothering me. And finally, I hit him up and I said, "Listen, man, if I come out there and be in your match, will you not do this?" And yeah, okay. It's like, oh my gosh, I guess I have to come out for his match. So, yeah, basically I came out to Cage of Death, 15, I think it was, in 2013. Made an appearance. Nobody saw it coming. I actually told the promoter, "DJ, can we please not announce this? I know this is a bad business decision." And he says, "Yes, it is a very bad business decision, but if that's what you want, then
dude, people were shocked to see you there."
Yeah, that was the effect that I wanted. And basically there was a guy named Necro Butcher who didn't make it to the event, and they were short one person in the cage. They said, "Hey, do you want to wrestle the cage match?" And honestly, like, I was looking at it, like, coming up with spot ideas, but I'm like, that's not why I'm here. But I made an appearance. I helped the one team win the Cage of Death match, and then I had my encounter with Rory on the mic.
Basically, you went to you delivered that kick, right?
Yep. Yeah.
But dude, I mean, it's just like an alcoholic. All of a sudden, he's got a big bottle of Jack Daniels in front of him, or you know, the heroin addict. Okay, there's a heroin and a needle on the table. You're right there in the thick of this thing. You've already been hearing the pops of the crowd. The boys working their ass off. What were you thinking?
The irony, like, I'm coming back to essentially give Rory my approval and respect on the mic, because that's what's going to free him from all this, and it's going to be beautiful. But I show up and I'm like, I'm helping him step away. But I kid you not, they set up this 3-tier thing of like glass and then barbed wire and tables. And I'm looking at it like, oh, I totally know how to do a spot through that where I wouldn't get hurt. Yeah. And I'm like, because it's 3 tiers, it would I'm like, it would be so soft and this would be great. And I'm getting ideas. I'm like, no. And all the wrestlers are like, anything you want to do. And they're like, oh, well, I was going to go through this gimmick, but you can have it. And I just had to go for a walk. I'm just like, no. And I put my gear on and everything, and it came back. It'd been 10 years I was gone, but I was just like, I know how this feels. I know how to do this. And I'm in shape. And I'm like, no, like this is.
But you were there to do the favor was the story was to retire Rory.
Yes, yeah.
And to go against that would, I think, as you said, be hypocritical.
Exactly. If I'm going to come back and I'm going to be an example to him, be so stupid if I draw it all to me. This is about me. Look at the risk that I took. I'm like, that would be the stupidest self-defeating thing ever if I did that. And so even today, like, I'm healthy enough that I could do that stuff. It's just like I've gotten so many depressing stories that have come back to me, people that have tried to attempt exactly things that I did, and it has not gone well. I remember a kid in the backyard years ago was going to reenact something off of a roof that I did through light tubes. I asked him not to. He did it anyway. I didn't hear from him for a few days. And he said the light tube ended up severing a major thing in my wrist. I was bleeding out, and I had to spend several days in the hospital, and now I've got like nerve damage. Like this, oh my gosh, you know what I mean? It's like kids get hurt doing wrestling all the time, but it's like the risks that we took, it's not going to go as well for people, 9 times out of 10, like that try and do that stuff. So
did Roy stay retired?
The Mondo character is completely done. He stayed away from the ring for about a year, and then with his brother Drew, who's currently in WWE, they started a tag team. It's just pure wrestling. They wear their singlets and everything, and it's not high risk at all. And so, now it's been 5 years he's been doing that. But he has a degree in criminal justice, I believe, Rory, and he's looking at a couple jobs in that field. And he did get to do something for WWE. Like he did a tag match against Braun Strowman and somebody else. Like when they come to Philly, his brother will hook him up and get him in there. So he'd be happy to do something for them, but he's done with the death matches.
Here's one.
Yeah.
What advice do you have to anyone who would want to get into deathmatch wrestling?
It's tough to give those people advice because I was of the same mindset. It does not matter what people say to you. What I've come to realize is if you want to do something, you're just going to find a hero who is an example of what you want to do. If it's not me, it's somebody else. If it's not me, it's Sabu. If it's not Sabu, it's Jeff Hardy. It's whatever. That's an example of what I'm going to do. And so it's not like you necessarily look to somebody for wisdom to steer you away from it. You find the example of what you want to do, and you build yourself after that. So this might not sound like the best advice, but it's like some people just have to walk through it. And I get that. I understand. Like you have to do it. But I do believe all of us will get certain warnings, and we'll know them. They'll come to us where if you continue down this path, it's not going to go so well. And so my advice is if you have to walk through it, it's not going to lead to riches, fame, whatever. I mean, people still talk about me today, but you know what I say? That and $2 will buy me a cup of coffee. It's like, what's the worth of it? Like, yeah, I'm inspiring kids to hurt themselves in the backyard. What's that worth? You know what I mean? If I can use it to channel into what I'm doing in my career, maybe it's worth something, with filmmaking, but it's not this real fulfilling, rewarding experience, being a deathmatch legend. It's not. So I'm just saying, realize that the end game, if it goes as good as it possibly could, is not all it's cracked up to be. You could wrestle much smarter. You could look at somebody like Ambrose. I talked to him, and it's like, dude, that was insane what you did. And he's like, oh no, we just Hollywooded that, man. He's like, we so carefully set that up. I felt nothing. You know what I mean? Because I've had guys say to me, if I try to say, hey, I think this is a bad idea, I've had guys say to me, well, I'm going more the Ambrose route. And I'm like, well, then don't tell me you made this gimmick with open scissors that you're going to land on. That's not the Ambrose route. Yeah. That's the idiotic, spiral and crash and burn route. So my advice is, if it's just something short term you want to do it, realize, how badly you're going to get hurt, and then walk away. But if you want a longer career, pay attention to the guys that have longer careers and are doing it wiser than I did, because that was never my intention to have a long career.
Do you doing the PWG stuff? Go watch into that?
No, but your buddy right down the street, Brian Kendrick, runs Wrestling Pro Wrestling, a comedy show, and I'm going to pop over there tonight, actually. Yeah. I just
tell him I said hi.
I will. Yeah, another friend of mine runs like the tech for that, the cameras and stuff, and so I just pop in, laugh. You know what I mean?
Dude, what were your thoughts? Because I saw all the stuff. David Arquette was on my show about a year ago. Super nice
I need to listen to that. Yeah, he really is.
But he wrestled the dude with the...
Nick Gage.
Yeah, Nick Gage. They cut his arm.
Yeah, his neck.
His neck, yeah. Whatever it was. Ended up going to the hospital.
Yeah. Yeah, it was.
People were all up in arms about that.
They would have let him do whatever he wanted in the main event. They didn't pressure him to do any of the light tubes or anything like that. Because I talked to Gage when I showed up. Dude, he's like, David, he's like, he wants to do anything. He wants to go crazy. And I thought he meant just like a real stiff match. Main event comes around, and I'm in the back alley talking to people, and I see him taping up bundles of light tubes. And I'm like, what's this for? For Arquette's match? I'm like, what? And he knew what he was doing. He knew people there. He saw me, recognized me, came up and said, I watched your film. He knew people there, Arquette. He knew who Gage was and how volatile he is in the ring, and he opted into doing this. He had done his homework. A lot of respect. So it was impressive. That I've never seen anything so surreal in my life. Like him coming out and the fans are kind of heckling him a little bit, but as the match goes on, he's in the ring with Nick Gage, and those fans are chanting Arquette, Arquette, like after he's busting light tubes. And I mean, like it was just such a surreal moment. I mean, you know, the guy, he's not an A-lister, but he's a name in Hollywood. I'm sure he has money saved up. He does not by any means need to do this, you know, for any reason whatsoever. He's, 47, 48, something like that. And to get in there, found out he's been training for a while, for like 6 months, training real hard. And I think even working under a hood somewhere, trying to earn his stripes, you know. And so, yeah, he was doing great. It was incredible.
Yeah, but here's the thing about that. Okay, he comes from, he's like second, third generation actor.
Yeah.
And he's a very good actor. I mean, all of his sisters act. And so he's been out here. He produces stuff. They do documentaries. He's not just an actor. He does a lot of things behind the scenes, producer. So here's a guy that, why don't you go do this? Why are you doing that? You don't have to do that. No, he doesn't have to. He's doing it because he loves it.
Yeah.
So why shit on the guy for doing something that he's passionate about and that he loves? So I give the dude all the credit in the world. I'd love to have him back on the show and talk about, what's happened since the last time I talked to him to right now. But, hey, man, if you're out there and you're chasing what you enjoy in life, that's your life to enjoy. So do what the hell you want to do. If that's what he wants to do, more power to him. I think it's great.
I guarantee you, even the tough fans that were there, 9 out of 10 people in that building would not get in the ring with Nick Gage with light tubes. And the thing is, Gage, he's really intense, but he was taking care of him. And Arquette knows this. He had color going, and Gage took a broken light tube and was going to carve his forehead, but he's just going to press his palm to his head. Yeah. But Arquette I think he saw his own blood, and he panicked, and he turned, and that's when it stabbed him in the neck. And so, he's come out and he said, I apologize. It's because I panicked, and I hope I didn't bring negative attention to deathmatch wrestling and all that stuff. But
I think it's blown over.
It has.
There's not going to be any backlash, or the business is going to go the shits or nothing. But it was what it was.
Game Changer Wrestling is happy about this, because I'll tell you what, Joey Janela's Spring Break 3 coming up, that thing sold out in 4 minutes. It's WrestleMania weekend, and they announced tickets for that, and so they're happy for the press.
Going back to the, we'll wrap up here in a moment. But when you said that you went through what was that? A log cabin made out of tubes.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
So, and then right before the one show, and I think this was this in retirement of Rory, or was this when you wrestled Zandig? But anyway, there was a lady back. She was maybe like a security guard or a personnel that worked at the building. Yeah. And she goes, "Oh no, I'm a little nervous. Things could go. It's going to be a little hairy. It's in the film." My question is, man, all of a sudden there's that wall of chairs that comes down. This isn't all in the same show. There's that wall of chairs, but just the prep of stuff like that. Because in WWE, they've got a setup for everything, but it's for normal everyday setups. Mm-hmm. And all of a sudden, with the creativity, the imagination, the one-upsmanship of deathmatch wrestling, how are you guys coming up with all this shit? And how long does it take to prep for a show like that? Because there's some pretty, I mean outlandish is an insult. I mean, outlandish is what great creative to come up with this shit, and then for it to happen, because it goes back to what I was saying. It's not like you can actually just set all this shit up on the budget and practice it a bunch of times to perfection.
Yeah, well,
and the element of human error.
There's a guy who is present, Shawnee. They call him Scrawny Shawnee, and he kind of does security, but he also transitioned into, pretty much designing the Cage of Death each year. And so I think he was responsible for a lot of that. And then there's a wrestler named Danny Havoc who I think he studied architectural drawing, but I'd seen his pencil drawings. Everything in that cage match you just described, he had drawn up, and then Scrawny put it together and made it. But yeah, you got to ask yourself at one point, like, this is an indie wrestling show. How much is it going to make, and what's it for? And it's. I was gonna say, I wish you could build up a better story in the match and have it really be impactful. But some of the Cage of Death matches, like Drew Gulak in WWE, he did a Cage of Death just a few years ago, and really good storytelling and drama and everything. But that one in particular in my film was just kind of, who's going to go through this stunt, who's going to go through this one, it's just like just scheduling all the stunts. Now let's just walk out and do them, and the fans are just pounding a ton of beers. So the live crowd, like, they're happy, you know what I mean? But then it's just all gone, you know what I mean? It's just like we're legit risking our lives and like taking, falls through glass and all the way to the cement floor. And then it just moves on.
Well, where can people find you on social media, Facebook, website, whatever, or do you have anything else other than the trade we want to talk about? We've talked about it. It's awesome. I loved it. I watched it twice. Yeah. If you're any kind of fan of wrestling, whether you're a fan of death wrestling or not, I loved it. And the death wrestling really intrigues me because it's not something that I would go out and do. I've taken some bumps in a similar vein, although nothing to that extreme, because I just love all variations of the business. Yep. Like I said, we're talking about pro style, we're talking about lucha, you're talking about a strong style or deathmatch style. I'm a fan of the business. So just watching some of the matches, some of the highlights, it was very intriguing to me, and I loved it. So if you haven't seen the trade, check it out. So where can people find the trade and talk about anything else you want to promote?
Thank you. Yeah, the trade is the big thing right now. You can order it on Blu-ray right on Amazon. A couple things will show up if you search the trade, but if you search the trade Nick Mondo, it'll pop up. Blu-ray, and now they have DVD as well. I believe you can order it. If you have Amazon Prime, you can stream it for free. But yeah, upcoming projects, it's all in the works right now, and some things I can't talk about. I am doing stunts and playing a creature in a film coming up. But Instagram at MTB Mondo, if you want to follow me there. Or you can search Matthew T. Burns, Nick Mondo on Facebook. Chasing a lot of things here in LA. But the trade is, if you want to see my story, that's where you go.
Wrapping up. Been talking to Matthew Burns, a.k.a. Sick Nick Mondo. Check out the trade. It's awesome.
Thank you so much. I hit you up. You got back to me. People told me you've been interviewing some indie wrestlers, and so I checked out what you're doing and said, wow, I'll give it a shot. This is surreal. I never imagined I'd sit down and have a chat with you, but I sure appreciate it. Thank you.
If you or a loved one suffer from leg or foot cramps, you know how painful and disruptive they can be. Muscle cramps can jolt you out of a sound sleep or interrupt your daily life. Well, check it out, because I'm about to get you hip to TheraWorks Relief. A non-greasy foam is proven to relieve muscle cramps fast and reduce muscle soreness. With daily use, TheraWorks Relief can even prevent muscle cramps before they start, so you can get a full night's sleep or do the activities you love. TheraWorks Relief only takes minutes to apply, absorbs quickly, and it works. People love the results. You've probably seen Dr. Drew Pinsky on TV putting TheraWorks Relief over. It's that efficient and respected. And Christmas is next Tuesday. If you need any last-minute gifts for someone who suffers with muscle cramps or muscle soreness, get them TheraWorks. TheraWorks Relief is the top choice for preventing and relieving muscle cramps. Get TheraWorks Relief today in the pain relief aisle at Walmart, CVS, Rite Aid, and Walgreens, or by talking to your pharmacist. Learn more at TheraWorksRelief.com. That's TheraWorks Relief.com. Check it out. All right, everybody, give me the go-home cue. So I'm going to wrap up this podcast and ride off in the sunset. Before I do that, I want to thank my guest, Matthew Burns, also known as Sick Nick Mondo, for coming on the show today. He drove in from across the main streets of Los Angeles to share his story in person with me, and I tell you what, he was a very interesting guy to talk about, and if you get a chance to track down, find The Trade. That's his docu-film that they made over the course of a couple of years, and I thoroughly enjoyed it. The deathmatch wrestling scene is not something I'm real familiar with. I got a chance to, obviously watch some death-type matches with Mick Foley and Terry Funk and Joey Janela, and to watch this guy's story because he was, at the top, at the pinnacle of it, and a guy who influenced a lot of people to get into the deathmatch wrestling scene. It's not for everybody as a wrestling style, but it's very dangerous. I wouldn't recommend anybody go out and try this, but watch this documentary, watch this docufilm, whatever you want to call it. It's very interesting. And, man, I tell you what, Matthew is a very bright, intelligent guy. He's getting in stunt work now and into the film business. I wish him all the luck in the world. I highly recommend watching The Trade. It's a damn good film. I love the way he made it. And some of the stuff in there is just so graphic and disturbing, you just can't take your eyes off the screen. You talk about tough as nails. It's very badass. Check it out. Thank you, Matthew, for coming and being on the show. I enjoyed it. And I think that sick Nick Mondo was a hell of a character, hell of a persona. And dude was just absolutely fearless. Don't forget, guys, the Steve Austin Show is going to be going on a hiatus in January. I'll be gone for a bit while I recharge the batteries and hit the reset button. In the meantime, continue tuning in each week as we bring you the classic episodes from the Steve Austin Show archives. And if you're thirsty, I got the best damn IPA on the planet, Steve Austin's Broken Skull IPA from El Segundo Brewing Company. You can find it at Whole Foods and Total Wines if you live in SoCal. If you ain't in Cali, you might be shit out of luck. And if you're looking to get either the Cold Steel Broken Skull knife or the new Working Man knife, you can get them at my Amazon store. Amazon's got the best price on both knives. Just go to Amazon.com/shop/Steve Austin or go to the Cold Steel Knives website. I want to say one more thank you to all the fine sponsors of the Steve Austin Show, especially Geico, DDP Yoga, ESPN, TheraWorks, and TrueCar. That's how I'm able to do this podcast for you twice a week for free. Please support them because they support us. If you need more info on my sponsors, check out the show description to this episode for details. Folks, I am on social media, Twitter and Instagram at Steve Austin BSR. This coming Thursday, stand-up comedian, actor, writer, awesome, funny guy, Ron Funches came by 316 Gimmick Street, and we had an absolute blast shooting the breeze about professional wrestling, stand-up comedy, acting, and his podcast, and all kinds of things. Please check out my podcast. It's coming Thursday with Ron Funches. Until next time, my name is Steve Austin, and I will catch your ass down the road.
This has been a Podcast One production. Download new episodes of The Steve Austin Show every Tuesday at PodcastOne.com. That's PodcastOne.com.
Before we ride off, a quick message from our friends at TrueCar. Every car comes with its share of stories. That ding in your bumper when you nervously picked up a first date, or the mileage you saved by riding your bike all summer. While you can't cut a price tag on your stories, now with TrueCar, you can at least find out what your car's worth when it's time to sell or trade it in. Just go to TrueCar, simply enter your license plate number, and watch how your car's details pop up. Then just answer a few questions. Navigation, moonroof, high mileage. Now you'll know how much it's going to cost you so you can plan ahead. Once you're finished, you'll get a true cash offer sent in minutes, which you can take to a local certified dealer to cash out or trade in. So when you're ready to experience a better way to sell or trade in your car, check out TrueCar today. True cash offer not available in all areas.